Hey, US1, how are you guys doing? Home stretch. 3 classes left. Impressive, right? We've made it. All right. And of course, with these 3 classes left, you're going to have one more quiz, right? So another quiz. It'll probably be on Monday. Um, and so that's going to be interesting. Make sure you guys remember over the weekend, especially for the period 5 guys. That means that quiz is at 9 o'clock. So set your alarms now on your phone. Set it to the duck. The duck is annoying as an alarm sound, wakes anybody up. Um, yeah. So that quiz will focus on workers and labor unions. So last class, we kind of introduced the idea of labor unions. Today, we'll talk about why the American public doesn't quite support workers. And the next class, I've actually got a video for you guys to watch that talks about one particular strike, the Homestead strike. So that's kind of what I've got for you. But hey, how about a joke? So this weekend, someone basically broke into my house and stole all my light bulbs. Now, I know I should be upset, but I'm absolutely delighted. Delighted. No more lights. They took away the lights. I'm delighted. Okay. Anyway. All right. So I hope all is well. Stay safe. Stay smart. And yeah, talk to you guys later. So today we're going to continue talking about labor unions, and in particular, the fact that they did not find much support with the American public. And so this is a PR game, right? The workers desperately want the support of the American people. And of course, management wants the support of the American people. And then you have the government also that gets involved with this. And you're going to see a pattern is going to happen, and that workers are going to become frustrated. We talked about, last class, how they don't have a lot of leverage when it comes to fighting these battles with management because of so many immigrants being willing to work. So as these workers got frustrated as their strikes were not getting the results they wanted, the strikes would often turn violent. And in that violence, they would attack management's property. They would destroy machines. Um, factories themselves would be damaged. And the American public then viewed these workers as being violent. Um, Also add into the fact that a lot of these workers are lower class people. Some of these workers are immigrants themselves. You have that idea of nativism, which has been permeating at the same time, which we talked about last unit. All these things are going to combine to give people a real negative view of workers and labor unions. And so if you think now between 1881 and 1905, there were 37,000 strikes in the country involving 7 million workers. And strikes, if effective, also impact the public. And so you had strikes involving police departments, fire departments, um, postal workers went on strike. Um, People who worked for trains went on strike. And of course, if the mail can't get delivered, if there's fear that your garbage isn't going to get picked up, or if that supplies can't move around the country, this impacts people. And people then get upset and they get frustrated. Workers would hope they would side with the workers and say, all right, give the workers what they want and everything goes away. But more often, what you saw was that people and government respond with more violence, in which troops are then brought in, and you actually have fights happening between workers and the government. And so management saw this. They saw public opinion turning against the workers. And so they would look to capitalize on this by creating what were called yellow dog contracts. And so a yellow dog contract is something that a worker would be forced to sign, which basically would say they would promise never to join a union. And of course, if you get enough people to do this in a workplace, you then destroy the union, and there's no longer a union in that factory. An example of kind of what we've been talking about here, workers organizing and workers turning these protests turning violence, is the Haymarket Square riot, which occurred in 1886 in Chicago. And what you had was this was a massive street protest to basically coordinate around May Day, which is usually on May 1st. And May Day is still a holiday celebrated around the world. That's kind of like a Labor Day. Our government doesn't, we don't celebrate May Day anymore because May Day is associated with communism in a lot of places and socialism. So we had to create our own holiday to celebrate workers, and so that's why it's Labor Day. Um, but so you had all these workers gathering to kind of promote workers and promote their interests. Police respond. There's some pushing and shoving going on between the two groups. Police then fire into the crowd, killing four strikers. The next day, you now have the strikers return, but now they're angry, and they're angry at the police. So they come after the police, and a bomb is thrown at the police, and seven police officers are killed and wounded. Um, and so at that point, once the bombs from the police start shooting, and what we have is just craziness and just anarchy, basically in Chicago. Eventually, eight workers are arrested, and when it's discovered that they are German immigrants and they're anarchists, and anarchists are people who are against government, um, now all of a sudden, workers and labor unions get painted with this broad brush that all labor unions are run by immigrants, all labor unions are anarchists, um, and so thus workers are radicals not to be sided with and not to be trusted. And so unions had to respond to this. And so the AFL did as best they could to root out any anarchists, root out any troublemakers, and to try to kind of alleviate the fears of the country. Um, but then you had another union created called the IWW, or the Industrial Workers of the World, that kind of went the opposite route. It says, look, if they think we're going to be like radicals, if they think we're a bunch of like thugs, then we're going to be radicals and we're going to be thugs. And so the IWW was an aggressive union. They existed for a short period of time. Their biggest success was actually in Paterson with a Paterson silk strike just after the turn of the century. Um, but they were led by a man named Eugene Debs, who was a socialist. Debs would go on and run for the presidency several times as a socialist. Um, and it was a union that, again, was rooted in this radical socialist kind of belief that all the workers needed to unite. Um, they wanted to get rid of a basic wage system in which you're working at an hourly rate and instead go to salaries for all workers. And they wanted to do this through a general strike. And a general strike is when all workers, regardless of what it is you do, go on strike to support your fellow workers. So a general strike has the potential to shut down a country. Um, and their motto was that there can be no peace while hunger. Um, and so while the IWW was around briefly, they kind of became the manifestation of what people thought these labor unions were. And so now people can say, see, I told you they were radical. See, I told you they were being run by a bunch of socialists. So the IWW, while in the short term gave workers a voice and allowed them to kind of like be more aggressive, which is something workers wanted. But unfortunately, it fed into the stereotype that the American public already had.